Well, hello again, and welcome to the Dirr Garden. Katie and I had a kind of a walk around through the garden about a month ago. The video didn't turn out too well. We had some sound issues, and the kids in the neighborhood were screaming. And not that it'll be a whole lot different today, but we tested all the equipment. I think we're ready to roll. And actually, a month later is actually quite good because the leaves have been fully expressed on the various shrubs and trees, and the garden is actually beautiful. On April 20th, we had over 700 people tour the garden as part of the Piedmont Garden Tour. And I think people were really almost overwhelmed by the variety of plants. My design, or our design, Bonnie and my design, is certainly not the best, but the plants that we've loved into being, I think, are about as nice as you're going to see anywhere. And we've been in our 15th year in the garden, 15 growing season. And the date is May 4th, so we moved about 2 weeks later from the garden tour. And from that initial, back in early April when I shot the video, the leaves weren't fully out, different things were in flower. And right now we're kind of just winding up the Baptisia flowering season. We'll show you a few of those later on as we walk through the garden. But I thought we might spend more time actually talking about the plants and moving quickly through it rather than get into some kind of a elaborate discussion on how they got to where they are and who bred them and this sort of thing. What you're looking at right now is a redbud. I have many. In fact, we put a redbud video together, which many of you have viewed, and you never saw it like this except in a still picture. This is called Silver Cloud. It came out of Theodore Klein's nursery in Kentucky. It's one of the most beautiful. It never gets accolades, but it comes out with this, actually the new growth will have a pink cast to it, the first flush of variegated new growth. And then it goes to a green marble cake type of variegation. And it's really beautiful right into, I'd say, mid to late summer. And again, if the temperatures get too hot or gets too dry, it loses some of the color. But for the most part, it's good for the whole season. And in this case, the flowers are typically pink, like most red buds, but the foliage is actually what carries it through the season. It's small in stature. It's vigorous enough to be showy, where a lot of variegated plants are. So this is Cercis canadensis Silver Cloud. And in one of the earlier redbud, in the earlier redbud video, we talked a little about floating clouds, which is one of my favorites. But this is kind of a second place for a variegated redbud, and you can probably see why. This is what you might call the foundation planting, but it's certainly not the typical foundation planting where you see 73 sculpted meatball types of evergreen shrubs or broadleaf evergreens. This is a mixed planting. It embodies color and texture, different forms certainly, and we'll kind of walk you through it as Katie shoots it, and I'll stay out of the picture. You're looking at the yellow shrub. It's actually a spirea. It's called Thunbergii ogon. It's a golden Thunberg spirea. It flowers in January, February, and March. It holds its leaves through into December usually, and when the flowers first start popping out, the little white 1/3 inch diameter white flowers get a little fragrance to it. But it's an excellent plant for color. It's durable. It's tough. It's a zone 4-5 to zone where we sit in zone 8A, and it never fails. And if it gets too big, which is about 5 to 6 feet for mature height, you can cut it back, and you can see, which we do essentially every year. You can see the new growth, which is quite a bright yellow. We're walking down through here. Katie just walked by a Japanese maple called Ryusen, which is a weeping form. I'll show you that a little later on. I've grown many seedlings from Ryusen. And when you grow seedlings, you get the 1-to-1 ratio of typical tree type to weeping types. And we've saved some of the weeping types and the tree types and given them to friends, and also planted a few in the garden. Katie's now focused a little bit on Distilleum, which we can talk more about later on, but this is a shrub that we pretty much developed at the University of Georgia starting about 2003, 4, 5. There's now about 10, 12 cultivars, and it's bulletproof, it's indestructible, it's a broadleaf evergreen, it's native to Japan. I highly recommend some of the new cultivars like Swing Low, which Vintage Jade, Emerald Heights, Linebacker, which have different form, shapes, foliages, but they serve a multitude of purposes. They're a zone 7 to 9 plant. If you haven't heard of Distilleum, called ISU tree, ISU tree, is the common name. It's better to just call it Distilleum. We continue to walk down the path. We're looking at a Japanese maple called Shigetatsu sawa, I believe, or sana, S-A-N-A. It's variegated, has a light green leaf with a lighter interveinal areas. Katie's taking a close-up as we move through the thing. I thought when I put this together, I bulldozed actually, or as I call it, Kubota eyes. I got my Kubota out with the front end loader. My son and I met. We pushed the whole thing up and we started all over again. It was just a bunch of junk in here. And we started threading in Japanese maples, and we've got things like Aquilegia, there's hellebores, there's all kinds of, there's probably 50 different plants in this little so-called foundation planting. 50 different plants, not just 50 plants. As we move on down, there's the Japanese maple, which is one of the most elegant I think you could ever grow. It's called Rare Flora, and it was just a little baby free. Most of my plants are 1 gallon, 3 gallon plants that are put in the ground. And we watch them grow and we tend them and we love them, and hopefully they respond in kind. And we just had a little bit of a rain shower, and Katie might be picking up some of the raindrops, so it's glistening like little jewels on the small tender leaves of Rare Flora. This is a wonderful Japanese maple, I would think, for a container. I don't see it very often, but it's certainly, I think, one of the more unusuals. As Katie works her way down, there's another Japanese maple, and there's also an Acer japonicum, which is a different species. The one in the back is called Tamukiyama, and it's one of the best purple leaf sort of dissected or cut leaf types. And the one in front is called Green Dragon. This is a japonicum, which is a green leaf form. And there's also a cut leaf, not as refined as Tamukiyama, but has beautiful orange-red fall color. So when you talk about foundation plantings, they don't have to all look like the neighborhood blow and go or mow and blow guy who goes through and trims everything into the same shape. And I've seen plenty of these shrubs that I just pointed out being literally shaped into various geometric configurations, which really aren't very pleasing. So this is a foundation planting that's a bit different than normal. Katie and I kind of moved away from the foundation planting that you just witnessed, and we walked down a little slope to where there's a large drainage kind of ditch or gully. And I planted a lot of shrubs and trees in a kind of a mixed palette, if you will, to screen the drainage ditch from the normal view of the house and the garden. And what we're looking at in the white flowers is Itea virginica. And this is a seedling. We bred Itea. We put out one called Love Child, which Bailey Nursery introduced, which is more compact. But this is about a 5-footer, and it's loaded with flowers, and it's absolutely beautiful. This was one plant that was put in the ground about 2010, 11, 12. So 10 years later, actually, it is completely spread out. And if you know anything about Itea, it's native from Jersey, south to Florida, and probably into Texas, found along stream banks. It's common around here in our area, Bogart, Athens, Georgia area. And I've seen it just where it's branched. I've seen it grow in the middle of the Broad River, which is one of our state parks, and on like a rock outcropping, kind of a sandbar area. So it takes moist soils, but it holds up well in drought. The fall color is often a reddish purple, and the flowers are fragrant. And I think it's one of the best natives for kind of massing. And we have several good cultivars now. Spring Meadow has some. Henry's Garnet has been the standard, which was introduced many years ago from Swarthmore College. And it's still one of the best. It gets big and rangy. But this one that we threw away is actually, it's 5 foot tall. It's probably 15, 18 feet wide. But it's a good looking plant. And I walk by it every day, and sometimes I guess familiarity breeds somewhat of a contemptuous nature. You say, so what? But when you see it like this, you say, why didn't we introduce it? And I really don't have an answer. This is an overview of an area I call the hydrangea garden. Started it in 2012. Got to get my dates right here. And planted it largely with hydrangea macrophylla, most of which succumbed to cold, late spring freezes, early fall freezes. I got to the point where I said, the heck with it, and started inserting anything and everything I thought would grow. It's a shady side. It's on the west side of the house. It's quite shady. There's Japanese maples in here. There's other hydrangeas. There's Distilleums. There's hellebores. There's polygonatums. There's Japanese maples. There's osmanthus. There's viburnums, just to give you some idea that you don't have to have the mindset it only has to be one way. Katie is now photographing on a hydrangea that we introduced from the University of Georgia. It's called Twist and Shout. It's been one of the most cold hardy. It flowered last year when no other macrophylla in the garden did. It flowers on new growth and old wood. These are old wood flowers that are just coming in. It's a lace cap. And it's a beautiful, when it's fully aluminized, it's almost a gentian blue. And I'm so excited about this. We bred with this. We've used this in breeding for many other subsequent, I'd say, better hydrangea macrophyllus. And it's still one of the best. It was probably patented in about 2009. It's still available in the Endless Summer series, and it's offered by Bailey Nursery. Kate and I will just walk you through this so-called West Side hydrangea garden, which is anything but a hydrangea garden. One of my very favorite herbaceous perennials, which Katie's focusing in on, is Polygonatum odoratum variegatum. It's the variegated Solomon seal. You know, I just love this plant. It can turn rampant on you. It can actually take over. And a plant you can share with friends. You get yourself a sharp spade and divide it up, or divide it up and put it in a container. I do every year. I give it away to anybody that will take it, and most people respond, hey, wow, great for shade, holds up all summer long. One of the early leafers in the spring, so you know you're going to have something to cover the ground. And it's rhizomatous. It just keeps going. It's kind of like as a rhizome, a bit like an iris. It just keeps going as far as spreading. So one of the best fillers, I use it a lot for fillers, and especially in shady situations. As Kate and I walk down the path here, she's focused on a yellow foliaged hydrangea arborescens, which almost anyone who watches this video will probably have never seen. We bred this at our company, which is called Premier Introductions, and we can't find anyone major brands are really interested in something like this, but I think it's elegant. And this is actually, we have three different yellow foliaged forms with different flower colors. We have, this is a white mophead flower, the one I got my hand on. We have one with a pink lace cap flower. We have one with a pink mophead flower. But I think what this adds to this whole area here is color that you don't typically see until the hydrangeas pop into bloom. And so many macrophyllus died that if Katie will kind of pan down to the end where the Japanese maple is, I start just filling in with hydrangea arborescens, our normal, our so-called smooth hydrangea, which is native from New York to Florida and west into Kansas or Texas. And it has survived, it has thrived. I have lace caps, I got mopheads, I have pinks, I have almost reds, and I just think it's you know, it might be the savior of a hydrangea garden where you just cannot grow macrophylla because it's a zone 3 to zone 4 hardy, and it's native all the way to zone 9 down to the Apalachicola River Valley in Florida. So this is, I'm happy with the way it's turned out. And if it's Katie's padding, you're looking at hellebores again on the ground with their evergreen foliage. I start planting those. And we talk about this, and I think in the January video when we showed this, is just as dormant as a rock, and there wasn't anything here but a bunch of brown stems, and it's come to life in literally 3 months, 4 months. And if you looked at it, the video we did back in early April, none of this was actually here. So we may do in another 2-3 weeks, this will be in full glorious flower. We're looking at a bottlebrush buckeye, always one of my favorite shrubs, both for foliage, for fall color, and certainly for flower. It flowers later. It'll flower here. It'll flower in probably the end of May this year, because I see the flower inflorescences are already emerging from the kind of the cluster of leaves. But it's one of the best buckeyes because of disease resistance. It's a native buckeye. I've seen it at the University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum where it actually had fruit on it, so I know it flowered. So that's zone 3-4. And it's native to the southeastern United States, Georgia, Alabama, etc. I think maybe even in North Florida. So one of the best native plants, great shade plant, suckers and spreads. And this is kind of, again, a screening kind of plant for the big gully ditch I was talking about. Katie's now focused in on Aducia. I've never been much of a Aducia fan, although I've seen them when I was on sabbatical in England in 1999. I probably saw 20 different Ducias, and they're absolutely beautiful in flower, but it's kind of a flash in the pan, one-hit wonder. But I put a few in, and we're actually breeding some Ducias now. We're kind of looking at Ducias. Maybe we missed the boat on an old-fashioned shrub. This is Ducia rubens, R-U-B-E-N-S, and Rubens sounds like it should have red in it, but at least that's what it came in as, Ducia rubens. And Ducias are not the easiest thing to identify, but it is magnificent this year. It's about 12 feet tall and about 12 feet wide, kind of cascading white double flowers. Very elegant looking shrub, and everybody that visited on the garden tour said, what is it? So obviously Ducias aren't very well known. Katie's going to turn around now and take a look back at a bed which has a real mixed model of shrubs, herbaceous perennials, and when you view this, you'll see the baptisia kind of popping out with the yellows and the purples and the various colors. But there's also three different fothergillas in here, and one I just want to mention, which I think is really quite attractive if it would stay this way. It's called Hawaii, however you spell Hawaii, Hawaii, and I'm not sure why they called it that. But there's also one called Blue Shadow, which has this glaucous kind of a waxy blue coating. I don't know if you can see me rubbing it off. It's a wax that's deposited on the surface of the leaf, and you can rub it off with your finger. It has great fall color. It's already flowered, and I've got three different fothergillas in there. One called Redneck Nation, which was collected on the Georgia-Florida line. Another one is named after my friend John Malone, who had the most beautiful fothergilla growing by a stream, and it's totally different than the other two I just mentioned. And if you take a look at it, it's green on the lower surface, it's green on the upper surface, and this too is just magnificent for its red purple fall color. It comes out actually maroon, goes to orange or red purple, and it holds. And this will be November fall color in our part of the world in Zone 8A. So this is we've had this with Greenleaf Nursery. They're in the process of building up numbers, and hopefully it'll be released within the next year or two. It's been a slow go to get this thing out. I don't know why. There's some other fothergillas like Legend of the Small, Legend of the Tall. I've grown both of them, but I've never seen one that kind of matches up with this for clean foliage and also heavy flower and fragrant too. By the way, fothergillas, as many of you know if you've read the Dirr manual, Dirr loves fothergillas. It has a wonderful honey-like scent to the flowers, which have no petals but are mainly just a collection of stamens. And they occurred about 4 weeks ago when they were at their best. Kay and I were just, before we turned on the camera again, we're just saying, isn't this beautiful? Last time we did this, the tree in the distance was not in leaf at all. It was still in tight bud. And that is a beech. That is Fagus grandifolia, the American beech. And one of my favorite trees, by the way. I just love it. That's one of the few large trees I moved in. I moved it in as a 2.5-inch diameter tree, and that's probably 10 years ago. And you can see it's grown and just perpetuated itself and is absolutely beautiful. The red bud that's Kay's focusing on, the sun just kind of popped out too. We had a little rain shower before we started this video, is a beauty because of its purple foliage color and its purple foliage retention. This is black pearl, and it's probably one of the best for holding that deep maroon color. I also have forest pansy, I've had merlot, I've had other ones, but this to date has been, I think, the best. The flowers are pink, the foliage obviously is a maroon purple, and with red buds, if you miss the flower, which you may do in March, you still have foliage that actually literally shines for months in the summer, depending on the heat and what zone you might be living in or gardening in. But this whole area is, Katie looks to the right a little bit, you'll see large looking loropetalums and large distyliums, and those are just throwaways from our breeding program. And the idea was we use them as a screen. There's a fence between us and the property behind us, but the vegetation does a great job of screening out any neighborhood activity. This is a magnolia hybrid, and I won't go into the parents, but we named it Riveting Rosie, and it is semi-evergreen. The foliage is a lustrous dark green, as you can see. The flowers are sort of goblet-shaped or cup-shaped. They're pink, they're fragrant, they're almost satiny, fluorescent pink, and it'll flower sporadically throughout the summer. You can see the buds open. You can see some are already spent, the flowers are already spent, and others are in prime, and others are still in tight bud. And I just love this plant. It came a seedling given to me by Kevin Parrish from Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's a Magnolia Seboldii times Magnolia insignis, and I knew nothing about it. I grew it, and here it is. And we propagated some and given it to friends. But almost everyone who sees it says the same thing. They say, "Wow, what an absolute beauty." I'm going to cut a branch off here and kind of show you what Kate is going to give you a close-up of what you're looking at. You can see the pink, rich pink, the center, the actually center. If it shows you, if she can go in the center, you'll see the stamens have this rose pink color, deeper color. It's got a nice fragrance to it, pleasant fragrance. So this is the real star. I wish this had been in flower during the garden tour, but it was not. It just kind of popped into flower the last week or so. But it's one of a kind, riveting rosy. And one of my former students had a company called Cutting Edge Plants and sold in mail order and sold out immediately for like about $100 a piece. And I don't know anybody that has this except for us. So we got a couple, we'll root a few more this year. But if you're looking for a magnolia that avoids those typical late winter, spring freezes that we have, like Solengiana and Stellata, this is definitely one of a kind and worth considering. It's again a hybrid called Riveting Rosie. This is an area I call a mini meadow. At one time I had it so clogged up with plants there was no grass, and I moved a bunch of plants that had already repeated throughout the garden and cleaned it up a bit and gave it a little more, I'd say, openness, and kind of just edged it with many trees and shrubs. As you're looking back at the variegated redbud that we saw when we started the video, that's silver cloud again. And if you walk your eyes, that's a good way to do it, or walk your eyes through the various borders, you see purple, you see gold, you see different shapes, you see different textures, different colors, on and on and on. And I think Kate and I'll just walk you around here, and as she walks, the purple leaf maple that you see is Temukiyama. We saw that earlier. That's an excellent one. There's a green one that's to the right of that as you look at the video, and that is Sangukaku, which is called coral bark, which has excellent yellow-orange fall color and also coral red stems. Very pretty. And we're looking at to the left of the silver cloud redbud are two trees that I think anybody who has a garden or space should consider. The one on the left is Cynanthus retusus, called Tokyo Tower, and it has already flowered. And the plant on the right, we did a little video on that before. That's called Vanessa, and that is a Perodia persica. So two very upright growing trees that provide different, what I would say, structure and form. And I planted them intentionally there, so they opened up a kind of little portal or archway from our driveway where there's cars and utility vehicles and junk, and brings you into this little quiet space we call the mini meadow. As Katie spins around, you'll see containers. We use a lot of containers, and we try to keep it simple and try to keep it so the plants we put in will last the whole summer. We use begonias and we use impatiens, and we will put things in the center that have a finite amount of floral power, like Baptisia, which is one of those that you're looking at. The tree that Katie's focused on is a distal sylvatica called Green Gable, which we did a little work on, or a little video, and talked a little bit about. This is before. This is one of the great native trees. This came out of Tennessee. It's more upright, and it was literally a small B&B, maybe 6-8 foot tree when I put it in. And look at it now. It's about probably 25, 30 feet tall and maybe 20 feet wide. And it soon will engulf spaces, and I will have to think about how we handle it. Katie's going to focus on the ground right now, and we've got a lot of response out of this variegated ground cover kind of plant you're looking at. It's an Alstroemeria, and which is a Peruvian lily, but it's a variegated one called Alstroemeria psittacina variegata. And I wish I could spell it for you. I can't, but we'll put it up on the screen so you kind of know what you're looking at. Many people have asked about this and where do they get it. It'll stay somewhat evergreen down here. And I got it in a container next to the variegated polygonatum we talked about. And then another variegated plant kind of stuck in the center is one of the euphorbias. It's called silver swan, and you can't even see the foliage on it. But what you're looking at are the remnants of the flowers, and those are sepals or bracts, and the bracts carry the variegation too. So I love the euphorbia. It's got red, we got purple ones, and we got silver ones, we got variegated ones, one called Ascot Rainbow. I think they have a place in the garden. They do particularly well. And the next plant, the plant on the end, kind of a focal point plant, is a Japanese maple called Hubbs, Hubb''S, red willow. And it's fine textured. And I just love this little corner. It kind of slowly evolved. I mean, it's been a lot of different plants, and it kind of went to town over the last 2 or 3 years. And the Japanese maple's been in 2 or 3 years. Actually, the ground cover that I just mentioned, the Alstroemeria's been in there for quite a while and spread. That was from one little plant, the way that spread. And then I just planted the euphorbia last year. We're going to walk you through what I call kind of the sunshine border, and try to tie it together with various gold foliage plants. We've got abelias in here, we got spireas, we got golden Penstemon digitalis, and on and on and on. And then I mixed it up again with various and sundry other plants. But there's one particular plant she'll take you through kind of a photographic walk here to work our way down. There's also hydrangea arborescens here, which are in the background starting to pop into flower. This little pink flowered shrub that Katie's going to focus on, or is focusing on, is called Indigofera. And this is Kirillowii, and it will spit flowers sporadically later on, but its peak is April. And it really is beautiful. It's a member of the pea family, and I just love it, although it's something that you seldom find available in everyday commerce. We were doing some breeding with these way back when, and again, nobody was really interested, so we just kind of let it go. The plant behind that is a Photinia that a friend of mine, Stuart Winslow, and a friend of his found in Anderson, South Carolina. And the problem with red tip Photinia is the disease, Entomosporium, literally knocked it out of the commercial saddle and out of gardens, and nobody wanted it. Well, this is a different species. This is Photinia serratifolia. It's called the Oriental Photinia, but it has the same great red new foliage color. So we propagated it, and Stuart just bought it over a year ago in January, or actually a little later than that, February, and rooted cuttings. And this is a rooted cutting off of the original plant. And there are several nurseries that are interested in this, and particularly as you go further west where it's a little drier, you don't have the disease. And this chance, I think, brings some, or this plant brings color. As long as there's new growth, it'll be red and it settles down to green. But the best thing about it is disease free. There's no problem with the Entomosporium leaf spot. We keep walking down, you'll see, I thought these were sort of cute. This is, again, one of the penstemon. It's one of the purple leaf. These are all seedlings. And then the next that is the yellow seedling, which is just about to come into flower. And behind that is one of my favorite plants for hummingbirds. And I think I'm going faster than Kay probably is with the video here. But this is a salvia, which the deer don't bother. It's called black and blue, I think is the name of it. And I just root it from cuttings, and you can stick a branch in the ground. It roots easy. But when it gets too big, it'll get 6 feet tall. Cut it back, it flowers again. It just flowers on new growth. And it's already, as you can see, in full flower. It's a beautiful, almost what would you call it, got sunglasses on, violet, lavender, violet purple color. And we keep on moving down the path here. My theme of yellow, what you're looking at with this golden, which looks like a shrub, is actually a baptisia. And this baptisia flowers very little, maybe creamy flowers, but minimal flowers. But it's so pretty in foliage, and it holds the color all season long. And I just kind of left it in here. But it's a compact-looking shrub. You wouldn't know whether this was a woody shrub or which it actually is a herbaceous perennial that'll eventually die back to the ground in fall. But if Katie takes a shot back there, you'll see there's color, there's texture. Again, it isn't all one plant. Again, there's probably 20, 30 different plants in what I call the sunshine border. So if anybody has any fear about planting, I mean, you can always do it and remove it or chop it out or start all over. And I've done that too. This border actually started, when it started, it was about half this width. You see the picket fence in the background. Well, it was about 5 feet out from that, or 6 feet. Now it's about 12 feet out from that. And the border keeps getting bigger as I find more plants I want to install. We're kind of looking back towards the what I call sunshine border. And if you take a look in probably the middle of the screen, upper part, you'll see the variegated silver cloud redbud. I notice these white to some degree, starting to yellow and red, really jump. And what's really nice about this area, we left some open area. We didn't just junk it up with another 10,000 plants. And when we bought this second lot, which we bought 3 other lots after we got our original home and lot, we had this big Nyssa, which Katie might be able to pick up. And it's probably twice the size in 15 years as it was when we bought it in 2009. And this is a Nyssa sylvatica. It has 4 main trunks. And it's one of the most beautiful trees, native or otherwise. It happens to be native. It was here. And I don't know how we ended up with 4 equal size, about 18-inch diameter trunks. Might have had some injury some time, and 4 different shoots popped up, and you end up with what you're looking at back there. But if you're looking for a tree that pretty much runs from Maine to Florida and then west into Texas, and it's definitely, I'd say, this is something you might want to add to your garden. We're in the Arboretum area, and a lot of these trees were planted in 2013 to 2017. And you're looking at probably a 2017 tree. This is a ruby red horse chestnut, which according to the books probably shouldn't grow here in Zone 8A, but it's done remarkably well. It'll never be as big as it is in Europe and in New England, where I've seen 30 to 40-foot trees. But this is the real stunner. I don't like using that word, but when people say it, the first word that comes out, what is it? And where do I buy one? But this has been good for, this is probably 10 days out now. It's starting to senesce a bit. Some of the petals are falling off, but it's been clean. They do suffer from the ruby red horse chestnut, Aeschylus carnea, bryodii. Will suffer from anthracnose or leaf spotting, but I see very little here. I've got it on the north side. It's kind of on the north side of a woodsy area, and it's protected, which might be, I think, probably the best thing you could do with the tree if you're in a high climate like we are, hot area like we are. But it has been a remarkable performer. Fall color is yellow-brown, nothing great. Sometimes I get some fruits. I've got some seedlings popping up that haven't flowered yet. I've transplanted them, and I'm hoping to see if I get any different flower color. But this will be one for your garden that not everybody has, and it is available. And even our local garden center has one called Aeschylus carnea Fort McNair, which is listed as a little more disease resistant than the Aeschylus carnea bryodii that you're now looking at. This is another part of the Arboretum. These trees were all planted in 2000, not all, a couple exceptions, but were planted in 2017, and almost everything came out of a 3-gallon container. I either grafted it or I grew it from seed. And you can see the growth on this. This is probably 35, 40 feet tall. The oak that you're looking at straight ahead, which is an upright oak. It's a hybrid probably between Quercus bicolor and Quercus lyrata. But it's been a joy to watch these. You think you got them spaced far enough. It's been a joy to watch them grow. And what was 15 or 20 foot in spacing is now they're all kind of kissing cousins. As you can see, the oak and the corliss, the filbert, and I got another oak, a Schumart here, and it's getting close. And eventually it'll be a big forest type situation. Many people don't like it. They like things spaced perfectly. Well, nature doesn't do that. Have you ever seen a typical forest? There's trees on top of each other. And I figured as long as I have on the planet Earth, I'm going to enjoy as many trees as I can stick into a given spot. This is one of the maybe rare, I won't say rarest trees on the property, it's fairly rare. I grew this at the University of Georgia. We had about a 25-foot tree at our horticulture farm where I had most of my trials and most of my plant trials. But this is Pseudolarix camphori or amabilis. It's called golden larch. It's a deciduous conifer. The cones, the mature female cones look like golden artichokes. But what's really remarkable about this, number one, it grows. It's kind of, this one's actually grows, you can see the wide spacing of the branches. It's growing quite fast. But the foliage is the most beautiful grassy green, rich green. And in the fall, it turns a magnificent golden brown. So it's a rare conifer, kind of like Taxodium or Metasequoia, in that it is a conifer, a cone-bearing plant, but it drops its foliage. And it is available, and I would urge anyone who, this thing is hardy to Boston, and I've seen it up in northern Ohio. So it's definitely a zone 5 to where we said zone 8. It will not grow as big down here. But a beautiful plant, something different, something that offers, different from a pine tree. It offers color through the season and new growth. Even the male catkins or male cones are kind of a light creamy yellow, I guess you could call it. And then, as I mentioned, in the fall, you have the artichoke, the golden artichoke type cones, and the beautiful fall color. So I highly recommend it. It's worth a try. Get a small plant and go. This went in as a 3-gallon plant. I don't know how many years ago. If I could find the label, I could tell you it's probably 2017. So golden larch, Pseudolarix camphori, or amabilis. At one time, I was interested in breeding magnolias, but then I decided there's many people smarter than I that have been doing much longer and obviously have done a better job and continue to do a better job. But I grew a bunch of, before they even called magnolia, different members of the Magnoliaceae family. And this used to be called Mangletia insignis, and it's called red lotus tree. But now the name has been changed to Magnolia insignis. And this is one of the parents of Riveting Rosie. And this is a seedling I grew from my plots from seed I collected from my plants at the University of Georgia. And it's actually quite beautiful. They don't last very long. They're about 9 tepaled or petaled, maybe 6, 9, I think only 9. and there's a little bit of fragrance. And again, if you look at the center, Katie's kind of sneaking up there. That's got a rich, what would you call it, maroon type of center of the stamens, and that trait has been transferred to Rivian Rosie that you saw before. It is an evergreen. It's a broadleaf evergreen tree. It gives Rivian Rosie some of its semi-evergreen nature, and these have been in the ground for probably 10 to 12 years now. And I do very little to take out some deadwood now and then, but it's loaded with flower buds this year. Many people ask what it is. Where do you get it? Well, I don't know where you buy it, but unless you get yourself a handful of seed and go to town like I did, and you end up with something that's quite unique and quite beautiful. When we started, we talked about this being a shortened video, but it hasn't panned out that way. So Katie is going to kind of walk you through I would say, one of the many Baptisia borders. I call this border the diagonal border. And you can see some of the Baptisias have already passed, some are almost past, others have some fruit on them, and there's still some that are in full flower. So Baptisia is an amazing genus. We talk about this in the Baptisia video, 20 species that are native, largely North American. In fact, all North American. There are no Asian Baptisia that I know of, or European. And we've been breeding since I moved in the garden. I started falling in love with them and growing a lot of seedlings. And you'll see bees maybe every now and then buzzing about. And I've gotten purples, yellows, and as Katie walks down here, this is one that I've always really liked. And Bonnie and I were riding through the garden the other day on our buggy, just taking a look. I don't know what the color that is. We call it maroon, Katie, but beautiful, compact, heavily flowered, different colored Baptisia, which we've propagated. This is for those who are interested. This is B1622, which doesn't mean a whole lot of anything, but it's amazing the genetic variation that we see in flower habit from a handful of seeds, I started with some known cultivars and I started collecting seed. The bees did all the crossing. Now we've gotten better. We do isolation breeding where we put one color next to another. We move the plant out of range of other interferences, other insects, and let the bees control the crossing. And we go from there. And there's a little chipmunk I see in there. They're skittering around. I don't know if Katie can get him, but we provide, what do we provide? Food for the animals, as well as certainly the birds. We're looking at what we call the hillside border. This is partly on Katie's property and partly on her parents' property. And I start sticking Baptisia selections in willy-nilly among penstemons and hydrangeas and other plants. And the first one is one we call lavender, which is absolutely beautiful. This is about a 3-year-old plant. It's rooted-cutting. The next one is one of our yellow ones, which is, I think it's BO221. When they all flower, what we're looking for is the time of flowering. We talked about this before. And the next one, as Katie walks down the path here, is one of my very, very favorites. This is called, I named it immediately when I saw it, Violet Haze. And these are rooted cutting. These would be about 3-year-old plants. And it's just beautiful for flower color. But the shoots, when they first emerge, are also purplish. And I don't know if Katie can catch this a little bit, if I can bend a couple branches back here without getting stung. But you can see there's a wax, like rubbing the wax off on the shoots and on the stems. And in the early spring, when these pop up, which is March, and again, remember, this is May 4th, you'll see a purple shoot, and the wax gradually dissipates with time and heat. But the other wonderful thing about this one is that the pods, as they form, which are about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, actually are purple color. So this is a wonderful cut flower plant. It's a great garden plant, but also the fruits give it a longevity in the garden too. So this is Violet Haze. We have submitted a patent on this, and we think this is one of the best. And I bought all Tony Avents. We've bought Hans Hansen's from Walter's Gardens. We got Jim Holtz from the Chicago Bot Garden. And I haven't seen anything that kind of matches this for quality of color early on, and certainly flower color and profusion of flowers. Violet Haze. I'm in the middle of a pea patch, and I don't think I have said this, but Baptisia are in the pea family. And I'm among friends, if you will. But this is kind of a wrap up for today. But we're going to come back. We have a viburnum video we did, and we didn't quite finish it. We want to add a few plants and a few more images, and we'll do that. And the Baptisia we did last year, if some of you want to go back and take a look at that. In fact, I think that had more views than the hydrangea video. Amazing how many people are interested in this plant. And we're also going to come back and do one on oaks. There's actually about 10 different oaks that are planted in this garden, in the pollinator garden. And if you know anything about oaks, worldwide there's 500 species, and caterpillars, over 500 caterpillars actually feed them. The birds use the caterpillar larvae. They obviously use them for food to feed their young and provide protein, etc. And so it's a wonderful genus to explore. And we'll do that as to what grows here and talk a little bit about what goes further north and further west. So for today, I appreciate you staying with us. Again, we might have gone overboard, but I could keep you out here all day and night. In fact, it's heading toward nightfall at this moment. Plus, I heard the dinner bell ring and I have to go. So thank you for watching.